Hello, good evening. This is Yamaraj Das, coming from the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology, Alachua, Florida. And so we're going to be reading something from the Bhagavad Gita as it is. The advent of the Bhagavad Gita as it is on the 18th of this month. And so we will be reading something from the Bhagavad Gita every day. And remember Bhagavad Gita as it is. So this is commentary by Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so I offer my respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They're just like desire trees, and they're full of compassion for the fallen, conditioned souls. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaunavani Putrani Nirvase So Sunyabhati Vasachani Putani Om Gana Tamananda Shah Kaksa Amladam Krishna Sri Guru Namaha. Offer my repeated obeisances unto my spiritual master, who has opened my eyes, which was blinded by the darkness of ignorance, with the torchlight of knowledge. So we are going to be speaking about the Bhagavad Gita today, and this because it's a great book and it's coming from Krishna himself. Okay. Now, all right, we're going to do a little reading here. Although widely published and read by itself, Bhagavad Gita originally appears as an episode in the Mahabharata, the epic Sanskrit history of the ancient world. The Mahabharata tells of events leading up to the present age of Kali. It was at the beginning of this age, some 50 centuries ago, that Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to his friend and devotee Arjuna. Their discourse was one of the greatest philosophical and religious dialogues known to man. Took place just before the onset of war, a great fratricidal conflict between the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, and on the opposing side, their cousins, the Pandavas, or sons of Pandu. Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharat, a former ruler of the earth, and from whom the name Mahabharata derives. Because Dhritarashtra, the elder brother, was born blind, the throne that otherwise would have been his was passed down to his younger brother Pandu. When Pandu died at an early age, his 5 children, Yudhishthira, Bhima, Arjuna, Nikola, Sanjaya, came under the care of Dhritarashtra, who in effect became, for the time being, the king. Thus the sons of Dhritarashtra and those of Pandu grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military arts by the expert Drona and counseled by the revered grandfather of the clan Bhishma. Yet the sons of Dhritarashtra, especially the eldest Duryodhana, hated and envied the Pandavas. And the blind and weak-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his own sons, but none those of Pandu to inherit the kingdom. Thus Duryodhana, with Dhritarashtra's consent, plotted to kill the young sons of Pandu. It was only by the careful protection of their uncle Vidura and their cousin Lord Krishna that the Pandus escaped the many attempts against their lives. Now, for people who are not, who don't have any knowledge about this, a prerequisite for this is to read the Mahabharata, and if you don't have time to read it, go to one of these Indian stores and buy it. They sell it there in the subtitle. So it sort of sets the scene for understanding a little bit more in depth about the Bhagavad Gita. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to a gambling match. In the course of that fateful tournament, Duryodhana and his brothers took possession of Draupadi, the chaste and devoted wife of the Pandavas, and insultingly tried to strip her naked before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna's divine intervention saved her, but the gambling, which was rigged, cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom and forced them into 13 years of exile. Upon returning from exile, the Pandavas rightfully requested their kingdom from Duryodhana, who bluntly refused to yield it. Duryodhana, as princes to serve in public administration, the 5 Pandavas reduced their request to a mere 5 villages. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he wouldn't spare them enough land into which to drive a pen. Throughout all of this, the Pandavas had been consistently tolerant and forbearing, but now war seemed inevitable. Nonetheless, as the princes of the world divided, some sided with the sons of Dhritarashtra, others with the Pandavas. Krishna himself, now this is the supreme person, took this role of messenger for the sons of Pandu and went into the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for peace. When his pleas were refused, war was now certain. The Pandavas, men of the higher moral stature, recognized Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead, whereas the impious sons of Dhritarashtra did not. Yet Krishna offered to enter the war according to the desire of the antagonist. As God, he would not personally fight, but whoever so desired might avail himself of Krishna's army. And the other side could have Krishna himself as an advisor and helper. Duryodhana, the political genius, snatched at Krishna's armed forces, while the Pandavas were equally eager to have Krishna himself. In this way, Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna, taking it upon himself to drive the fabled bowman's chariot. This brings us to the point at which Bhagavad Gita begins, with the 2 armies arrayed, ready for combat, and Dhritarashtra anxiously inquiring of his secretary, Sanjaya, what did they do? So, this really happened. This is not a fable or some kind of fairy tale or story or something. This really happened. And it's very important for people to understand that the Bhagavad Gita, as it is, remember that, the Bhagavad Gita as it is one of the most important books in the world. So remember, setting the scene. Although widely published and read by itself, Bhagavad Gita originally appears as an episode in the Mahabharata, the epic Sanskrit history of the ancient world. The Mahabharata tells of events leading up to the present age of Kali. It was at the beginning of this age, some 50 centuries ago, that Lord Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to his friend and devotee Arjuna. This discourse, one of the greatest philosophical and religious dialogues known to man, took place just before the onset of a war of great fratricidal conflict between the 100 sons of Dhritarashtra, and on the opposing side, there's cousins, the Pandavas, or the sons of Pandu. Dhritarashtra and Pandu were brothers born in the Kuru dynasty, descending from King Bharat, a former ruler of the earth. from whom the name Mahabharata derives. Because Dhritarashtra, the elder brother, was born blind, the throne that otherwise would have been his was passed down to the younger brother, Pandu. When Pandu died at an early age, his 5 children, Yudhishthir, Bhima, Arjun, Nakula, and Sahadev, came under the care of Dhritarashtra, who in effect became, for the time being, the king. Thus the sons of Dhritarashtra and those of Pandu grew up in the same royal household. Both were trained in the military arts by the expert Drona and counseled by the revered grandfather of the clan, Bhishma. Yet the sons of Dhritarashtra, especially the eldest, Duryodhana, hated and envied the Pandavas. And the blind, evil-minded Dhritarashtra wanted his sons, not those of Pandu, to inherit the kingdom. Thus Duryodhana, with Dhritarashtra's consent, plotted to kill the young sons of Pandu. And it was only by the careful protection of their uncle Vidura and their cousin Lord Krishna that the Pandavas escaped the many attempts against their lives. Now Lord Krishna was an ordinary man. Now Lord Krishna was not an ordinary man, but the supreme Godhead himself. So, he's not an ordinary man. He's the supreme Godhead himself, who has descended to the earth and was playing the role of a prince in a contemporary dynasty. In this role, he was also the nephew of Pandu's wife, Kunti, or Prita, the mother of the Pandavas. So both as a relative and as the eternal upholder of religion, Krishna favored the religious sons of Pandu and protected them. Ultimately, however, the clever Duryodhana challenged the Pandavas to a gambling match. In the course of that fateful tournament, Duryodhana and his brothers took possession of Draupadi, the chaste and devoted wife of the Pandavas, and insultingly tried to strip her naked before the entire assembly of princes and kings. Krishna's divine intervention saved her, but the gambling, which was rigged, cheated the Pandavas of their kingdom and forced them into 13 years of exile. Upon returning from exile, the Pandavas rightfully requested their kingdom from Duryodhana, who bluntly refused to yield it. Duty bound as princes to serve in public administration, the 5 Pandavas reduced their requests to a mere 5 villages. But Duryodhana arrogantly replied that he wouldn't spare them enough land unto which to drive a pen. Throughout all this, the Pandavas had been consistently tolerant and forbearing, but now war seemed inevitable. Nonetheless, as the princes of the world divided, some siding with the sons of Dhritarashtra, others with the Pandavas, Krishna himself took the role of a messenger for the sons of Pandu and went to the court of Dhritarashtra to plead for peace. When his pleas were refused, war was now certain. The Pandavas, men of the highest moral stature, recognized Krishna to be the supreme personality of Godhead, whereas the impious sons of Dhritarashtra did not. Yet Krishna offered to enter the war according to the desire of the antagonist. As God, he would not personally fight, but whoever so desired might avail themselves of Krishna's army. And the other side could have Krishna himself as an advisor and helper. Lucky guys. The political genius, Duryodhana, the political genius, snatched at Krishna's armed forces, while the Pandavas were equally eager to have Krishna himself. In this way, Krishna became the charioteer of Arjuna, taking it upon himself to drive the fabled bowman's chariot. This brings us to the point at which Bhagavad Gita begins, with the two armies arrayed, ready for battle, ready for combat, and the Dhritarashtra anxiously inquiring of his secretary Sanjaya, what did they do? The scene is set, with only the need for a brief note regarding this translation and commentary. The general pattern translators have followed in rendering Bhagavad Gita into English has been to brush aside the person Krishna to make room for their own concepts and philosophies. The history of the Mahabharata is taken as quaint mythology, and Krishna becomes a poetic device for presenting the ideas of some anonymous genius, or at least he becomes a minor historical personage. But the person Krishna is both the goal and the substance of Bhagavad Gita, so far as the Gita speaks of itself. This translation then and the commentary that accompanies it propose to direct the reader to Krishna rather than away from him. In this Bhagavad Gita as it is, unique. Also unique is a Bhagavad Gita thus becomes wholly consistent and comprehensible, since Krishna is the speaker of the Gita and its ultimate goal as well. This is necessarily the only translation that presents the great scripture in true terms. Remember that. Try to remember that. Very, very important. This is translated by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. Okay, we're going to read from the preface here. Okay, and Srila Prabhupada is writing. Originally, I wrote Bhagavad Gita as it is, in the form in which it is presented now. When this book was first published, the original manuscript was unfortunately cut short to less than 400 pages, without illustrations and without explanations for most of the original verses of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. In all of my other books, Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Upanishad, etc., the system is that I give the original verse, its English translations, and word for word Sanskrit English equivalents, translations, and purport. This makes this book very authentic and scholarly, and makes the meaning self-evident. I was not very happy, therefore, when I had to minimize my original manuscript. But later on, when the demand for Bhagavad Gita as it is considerably increased, I was requested by many scholars and devotees to present this book in its original form. Thus, the present attempt is to offer the original manuscript of this great book of knowledge with full parampara explanation, in order to establish the Krishna conscious movement more soundly and progressively. Our Krishna conscious movement is genuine, historically authorized, natural, and transcendental due to it being based on Bhagavad Gita as it is. It is gradually becoming the most popular movement in the entire world, especially among the younger generation. It is becoming more and more interesting to the older generation also. Older gentlemen are becoming interested, so much so that the fathers and grandfathers of my disciples are encouraging us by becoming the life members of our great society, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And by the way, I got involved with this in my middle 40s. And I bought a Bhagavad Gita from a young devotee in Chicago. In Los Angeles, many fathers and mothers used to come to see me to express their feelings of gratitude for my leading the Krishna conscious movement throughout the entire world. Some of them said that it is greatly fortunate for the Americans that I have started the Krishna conscious movement in America. But actually, the original father of this movement is Lord Krishna himself, since it was started a very long time ago, but is coming down to human society by disciplic succession. If I have any credit in this connection, it does not belong to me personally, but it is due to my eternal spiritual master. His divine grace, Vishnupada Paramahamsa Vajakacharya, 108 Sri Shriman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. And this is Prabhupada speaking. If personally I have any credit in this matter, it is only that I have tried to present Bhagavad Gita as it is without any adulteration. Before my presentation of Bhagavad Gita as it is, almost all the English editions of Bhagavad Gita were introduced to fulfill someone's personal ambition. But our attempt is presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is to present the mission of the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Our business is to present the will of Krishna, not that of any mundane speculator like the politician, philosopher, or scientist, for they have very little knowledge of Krishna. Despite all of their knowledge, when Krishna says, Mamam Baba Bhakti Mad Ajamam Namaskura, etc., we, unlike the so-called scholars, do not say that Krishna and his inner spirit are different. Krishna is absolute, and there is no difference between Krishna's name, Krishna's form, Krishna's qualities, Krishna's pastimes. This absolute position of Krishna is difficult to understand for any person who is not a devotee of Krishna in the system of the Parampara, the cyclic succession. And I would like to pay my respect to my spiritual master, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. Generally, the so-called scholars, politicians, philosophers, and swamis, without perfect knowledge of Krishna, try to banish or kill Krishna when writing commentary on Bhagavad Gita. Such unauthorized commentary upon Bhagavad Gita is known as Mayavadi philosophy, Mayavadi. And Lord Chaitanya has warned us about these unauthorized men. Lord Chaitanya clearly says that anyone who tries to understand Bhagavad Gita from a Mayavadi point of view will commit a great blunder. The result of such a blunder will be that the misguided student of Bhagavad Gita will certainly be bewildered on the path of spiritual guidance and will not be able to go back home, back to Godhead. And Mayavadi philosophy is that people think that they will become Krishna. They will merge into Krishna and then they become God. So that is a big, huge mistake. Our only purpose is to present the Bhagavad Gita as it is in order to guide the conditioned student to the same purpose for which Krishna descends to the planet once in a day of Brahma, or every 8,600,000 years. This purpose is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, and we have to accept it as it is. Otherwise, there's no point in trying to understand the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Lord Krishna first spoke Bhagavad Gita to the sun god some hundreds of millions of years ago. We have to accept this fact and thus understand the historical significance of Bhagavad Gita. Without misinterpretation on the authority of Krishna, to interpret Bhagavad Gita without any reference to the will of Krishna is the greatest offense. In order to have oneself To save oneself from this offense, one has to understand the Lord as the supreme personality of Godhead, as he was directly understood by Krishna, by Arjuna, Lord Krishna's first disciple. Such understanding of Bhagavad Gita is really profitable and authorized for the welfare of human society in fulfilling the mission of life. The Krishna conscious movement is essential in human society, for it offers the highest perfection of life. How is this so explained fully in the Bhagavad Gita? Unfortunately, mundane wranglers have taken advantage of Bhagavad Gita to push forward their demonic propensities and mislead people regarding right understanding of the simple principles of life. Everyone should know how God or Krishna is great, and everyone should know the factual position of the living entity. Everyone should know that a living entity is eternally a servant, and that unless one serves Krishna, one has to serve illusion in different varieties of the three modes of material nature, and thus wander perpetually within the cycle of birth and death. Even the so-called liberated Mayavadi speculators had to undergo this process. This knowledge constitutes a great science, and each and every living being has to hear it for his own interests. People in general, especially in this age of Kali, are enamored by the external energy of Krishna, and they wrongfully think that by advancement of material comforts, every man will be happy. They have no knowledge that the material or external nature is very strong, for everyone is strongly bound by the stringent laws of material nature. A living entity is happily the part and parcel of the Lord, and thus his natural function is to render immediate service to the Lord. By the spell of illusion, one tries to be happy by serving his personal sense gratification in different forms, which will never make him happy. Instead of satisfying his own personal material senses, he has to satisfy the senses of the Lord. That is the highest perfection of life. The Lord wants this and he demands it. One has to understand the central point of Bhagavad Gita. Our Krishna conscious movement is teaching the whole world the central point. And because we are not polluting the theme of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, anyone seriously interested in deriving benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita must take help from the Krishna conscious movement for practical understanding of the Bhagavad Gita under the direct guidance of the Lord. We hope therefore that people will derive the greatest benefit by studying the Bhagavad Gita as it is, as we have presented it here. And if even one man becomes a pure devotee of the Lord, we shall consider our attempt a success. This is signed by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj Ki Jai. Okay, so now tomorrow we'll start with the introduction, and we are going to read the Bhagavad Gita every day until hopefully we'll be finished by the next Ekadasi. So me and my wife will be speaking some commentary on some of the verses. Okay, so this is Yamaraj Das coming from the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology, ISKCON Alachua, Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology, International Society for Krishna Consciousness, Yamaraj Das and Raga Devi Dasi. Okay, so we'll talk to you tomorrow. Thank you very much. Hari Bol. All glory to Srila Prabhupada.